little-known sect or monastic order, possibly the essence. The third scroll has not been identified. It was not an article calculated to set the world of scholarship aflame. So far as most readers of the Times were concerned, it would have meant little enough and would anyway have been effectively upstaged by other news on the same page. 14 German SS officers who'd commanded extermination squads on the Eastern Front were sentenced to hang. According to the chief prosecutor, the judgment was a landmark in the campaign against racial intolerance and violence. There were also reports of a massacre in the Holy Land. The previous Friday, two Jewish terrorist organizations, the Irgun and the Stern Gang, had wiped out the Arab village or Deir Yassin, raping girls, exterminating men, women and children. The Jewish Agency itself expressed horror and disgust at what had happened. In the meantime, according to other reports on the page, there was fighting in Jerusalem. Arab artillery had bombarded the western quarter of the city at dusk. Quantities of new field guns had arrived from Syria and were aimed at Jewish sectors. The city's water supply had again been cut off. Rail supplies had been disrupted. Renewed fighting for the Tel Aviv Jerusalem road was expected to be imminent. Elsewhere in the Holy Land, Arab terrorists had murdered two British soldiers and Jewish terrorists one. 42 years later, while this was being checked and copied from microfilm in a local library, there was a bomb alert and the premises had to be evacuated, plus change. Hostiles in the Middle East were to continue for another year on 14 May 1948. The day before the British mandate was scheduled to expire, the Jewish People's Council met in the Tel Aviv Museum and declared their own independent state of Israel. The response from adjacent Arab countries was immediate. That very night, Egyptian aircraft bombed Tel Aviv. During the 6.5 months of fighting that followed, Israel was to be invaded by troops from Egypt. Saudi Arabia, Transjordan, Syria, Iraq, and Lebanon, while the king of Transjordan proclaimed himself monarch of all Palestine. The final ceasefire took effect on 7 January 1949. According to its terms, the large central section of what had formerly been Palestine was to remain Arab. This territory was occupied and then annexed by Transjordan, which on 2 June 1949 began to call itself simply Jordan. Thus Qumran passed into Jordanian hands, along with the Arab east side of Jerusalem. The border between Israel and Jordan, the Nablus Road, cut through the center of the city. Amidst these dramatic historical events, the scrolls attracted little.